Hello and welcome to the Cool Dude Movie Wookiee Reviews Johnny Dep special. Tonight, we will review two of the sexy man's all-time best movies, What's Eating Gilbert Grape and The Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
That's right, Aiden. First up tonight is What's Eating Gilbert Grape. What's Eating Gilbert Grape is a touching story about a sexy youth called Gilbert Grape, who is incidentally played by a sexy man, Johnny Dep. Incarcerated in a tiny town, Andorra, with his poverty-stricken, dysfunctional family, Gilbert's hopes and dreams are broken. Following his father's suicide and his brother's defection, Gilbert has to serve as the principal breadwinner and the caretaker of his incompetent mum and siblings. Gilbert's mum, played by Dilan is a morbidly obese woman who has not left the house in 7 years. Although Mama is the head of the family, she's an hopeless, nervous wreck most of the time, and who expects her children, most of all Gilbert, to give up their childhood and do everything around the house. On top of all this, Gilbert is forced to also play a parent role and look after Arnie, their mentally disabled young brother, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Even though taking care of Arnie is very difficult and frustrating, especially for a young man who has his whole life ahead of him like Gilbert, he nonetheless does it without resenting Arnie, and in fact has very touching, loving, brotherly/fatherly relationship with Arnie. Yet, when Gilbert meets Becky, played by Juliette Lewis, a kind, considerate, lively woman, his family obligations as well as his long-running affair with a lonely housewife is broken, as Becky teaches him to consider his own dreams and wishes for a change. Although this can be easily dismissed for a touching story about a man who has a horrible life and who learns to become happy, this movie is indeed much more. What's Eating Gilbert Grape dwells into the deep social and family issues. In fact, it delves into the basic structure and mores of our society. Furthermore, it deals with the difference of being an admirable, self-sacrificing person and what it is to be a foolish self-sacrificing person. Indeed, self-sacrifice is a definite underlying theme, and its connotations are explored quite depthfully. In addition, the very essence of life and uncertainty, almost humorous nature of death, are analyzed quite philosophically in this movie. The cinematography in What's Eating Gilbert Grape is not the best I've seen, but it's quite unique. The camera certainly was used in a very interesting way, framework especially. In fact, framework and different shots were used not only to enhance metaphors of this movie, but the framework created metaphors itself. The cinematography was ingeniously able to do this by positioning different characters in the frame differently, and by just simply using up the space in the frame differently, thus showing the personalities of the character and creating metaphors. The special effects were definitely rare, and when they were done, such as when the house was burning, they were far from state of the art. But I suppose that was done purposely, so the mood of the film would not be disturbed, and I guess they wanted to keep everything as natural as could be, so there was definite pathos drawn out from characters. Music was definitely low-key. That was probably because, firstly, this movie is not an action or suspenseful movie, and secondly, because music is usually used to set the time and most importantly the place of the movie. And since Andorra is a dull, monotonous town, and as Gilbert says, describing Andorra is like dancing to no music, the director wittingly used only a little bit of music to set that mood. Nonetheless, the little bits of music in the movie still adds quite an effect. Mostly the music was soft, slow, and quiet. It mostly reminds me of hopeful traveling music. I guess the director wanted to show that the movie was a voyage in itself, a voyage of life.
The director, Lasse Hallström, tried to make the movie as naturalistic as possible. He relied more on cinematography than special effects, and kept the acting low-key. This movie is one of his better movies, and certainly my favourite. The acting was excellent, especially young DiCaprio. He even invented his own signature nose wipe, and really portrayed his character well. Johnny Dep was, to quote Janice, at his hottest in this movie. Cakes, Mama, who was not a professional actor, did a good job considering. It was her first and last movie, and she acted passionately and drew definite pathos. The casting was brilliant. The people all looked like real people. That, combined with the lack of special effects, makes the movie seem even more real. The director took some real risks in casting not only the non-actor Dilan to play a major role, but also a previously unheard of actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, and we all know how he ended up. The script was good, full of meaningful and occasionally humorous lines. At 118 minutes, the movie is just a tad on the long side, but is nevertheless a good movie. Touching and captivating, but not the most entertaining film ever. I give it 3 noses.
Well, I think this movie is good as Sum 41. It deals with issues that we sometimes have to deal with ourselves, such as self-sacrifice. It has got the best acting I've seen in a movie for a while. It draws great pathos and laughter sometimes. I give this movie 4.5 noses.
Speaking of noses, that reminds me of a funny story about this time.
Shut up! I don't want to hear your funny stories.
I'll hear about you. Our next film tonight, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, is set in an era when villainous pirates scavenged the Caribbean Sea. Pirates of the Caribbean is a stunning action-adventure story about good versus evil. This tale begins when Elizabeth Swann, Keira Knightley, the daughter of an important British governor, gets kidnapped by the world's most treacherous and cursed pirates, the Pirates of the Black Pearl, led by Captain Barbossa, Gregory Rush. Will Turner, Orlando Bloom, a young man madly in love with Elizabeth, sets out to fight the legendary Black Pearl and save Elizabeth. But he can't take on the barbaric pirates alone, so Will Turner teams up with an eccentric rogue pirate named Jack Sparrow, Johnny Dep, who has a score to settle with the captain of the Black Pearl. As this unlikely team chase the Black Pearl and encounter its pirates, they soon realize that these are no ordinary pirates. In fact, they are neither living nor dead, and actually turn into frightening skeletons when the moonlight shines on them. A very different film from director Gore Verbinski's previous films, not the least of which was Mouse Hunt. His wonderful use of cinematography and his sparse but exciting music prove that he can appeal to a more audience than the children that his previous movies entertained. There was some suave acting from Johnny Boy, who managed to look different in every movie he is in. According to Janice, he doesn't look as hot in this movie as in many of his others, but that's not what we think. The movie was let down, however, by the over-the-top acting from Bloom. Apart from the choice of Bloom to play Will, which I believe was only done because he was riding a popularity wave generated by his mildly better performance in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the casting was good. Most of the actors were well established, and even those that weren't fit their parts well.
Oh, what are you talking about? Orlando Bloom was as good as Sum 41.
What? What? You're just jealous of my skin color.
Oh yeah? Well, I got a Rolex.
Yeah, you probably stole it.
I'll give you a Rolex.
I don't want your dodgy goods.
This movie looks at what it really means to be right and wrong versus the law, and justice versus revenge. The music in this movie is fast-moving, suspenseful, lively, and exciting. However, it is not used very much. In fact, it was mainly used during action scenes and introductions to some characters and settings. Excellent use of special effects and awesome uses of CGI, especially during the transformations of the Black Pearl pirates and skeletons in the moonlight. The cinematography in this movie was rather well done, especially during the fighting scenes on the ships, which would have been rather hard to shoot. A large variety of shots were used during the action scenes, and thus the action scenes did not seem ordinary. I know there's a big fuss being made about this movie, but quite frankly, Aiden, I think you're drunk. Sure, this had a good action scenes and all, but I think it had much bigger potential. Could have been excellent, but it just turned out to be alright. I think the only extraordinary thing they did was cast sexy man Orlando Bloom. 3 noses from me.
The story was exciting and the script full of ironic humor. This movie was long, at 139 minutes, but it's 139 minutes of action and suspense. This film is, without a doubt, the best movie to come out of the cinemas in recent times. Everything was perfect, from the script to the props, except for the unfortunate inclusion of Orlando Bloom. 4.5 noses, and I look forward to the sequel, due to re-release next year, almost as much as I look forward to the end of Bloom's acting career. Well, that's it from us, and until next time, keep watching the movies. And cut.
Where's my fried chicken?
Hold on a second, the camera's still rolling.
Shut up!